Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, but the thing is just, again, make sure, put them on the spot and make them, meet their burden.
Yeah, they have to demonstrate their claims.
Yeah.
I mean, they always tend to go back, and go back to the Bible. I believe because in the Bible, because it's written by God and it's written by God.
Okay, but they have to demonstrate there's a God that could author that book.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't get to the book. It's like we can't talk about the book God wrote until we demonstrate there's a God. Until you can convince me a God exists, I'm not going to believe he's doing things. Right?
Right, but if Christians were smart enough to realize that they're making circular arguments, they wouldn't be Christians anymore.
Right, but you're asking what rebuttal can you provide, and I'm saying what Martin is saying, you have to demonstrate this to me, and if you're going to demonstrate it to me, you're going to have to be reasonable, and that means that we're not going to talk about things you're telling me God does until I see that there really is this thing called God that you're talking about.
Yeah, and they're on script when they're doing this kind of public witnessing to you, and they want to sort of draw you into their script, and you got to kind of get them off script, and that will throw them off a bit, and then you can just sort of take it from there. But again, Tracy's right at the very basic level. They will state something, and I'm going to give some more examples of what this, again, this sort of apologetics fail as, an example of how they can just make stuff up in response to your questions because, it's easy that way. It's all made up in the first place, and so they can just assert things, and they often do this. They will simply make an assertion. They will state it as if it were axiomatic, as if it were self-evidently true, and then they'll go, ha-ha, so there's my answer to you. And you have to just explain to them or make them understand. You have to stop them even before they get to that point. And they'll say, well, in the Bible it says, okay, back up, because we still haven't established it. So work on that, and then, if you want to email us, if you have more questions about how to do your approach and everything like that, do so, please.
Yeah.
And happy to help out. But we're going to go ahead and maybe take a few other callers now.
Cool.
So,
all right, guys. Great talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a go.
Okay. I would like to get in. I'm not going to take a long time with this. I'm not going to draw this out because we do have some other folks to get onto. But again, this all ties in. Emails. I mentioned before, we have emails and that we respond to. And I thought this one just came in, I think, today. Yeah, it came in this morning. And I thought that I wanted to go on the show today and not do my usual thing of, well, I don't have a topic. Let's just, how I am with Matt, right? No, I thought, well...
Because I expect a little more.
Yes, you do. And just sort of, because that really hurt last time when you, just left... I've learned my lesson about, so... Anyway, yes, here's an email that came from a fan in Italy. And his name is, I'll just say Sergey. Yeah, you go ahead and tell his name. Young guy, and he's essentially, he's an atheist. He's one of our viewers, and I told him that I was going to go ahead and address this today on the program because I thought, well, okay, I can just email him back, but no, this one's a really great one to sort of take down publicly, live, with blood and pie afterwards. He is in a discussion or an argument with a professor. Okay, now I'm astonished at. I wonder what kind of professor this man can be. Maybe theology.
That's possible.
Okay, because if this man is a professor, I am astonished to contemplate just how someone this dumb can get a professorship in Italy. I mean, are the educational standards in that? Italy has a wonderful intellectual cultural tradition. It hurts me to think that there are professors like this apparently out there trying to undermine that.
They also have the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
Well, yeah, but so there's, I guess, maybe this is a professor of Vatican nonsense, whatever. But anyway, Sergey writes us, and he tells us about this discussion he's having with this professor, and he says, and I'm going to be meeting with this guy this week to talk some more about this stuff, and just to go through pretty quickly. Apparently, he pointed this professor towards this website, God is Imaginary, with some, and the professor responds to some of this, and he starts out by saying, and I'm just going to go through this bit by bit quickly to illustrate just where the apologetics fail is happening, okay, and the making stuff up and the equivocating everything. The professor starts out by saying, I'm not going to do the accent, I just got done reading through a few of the God Imaginary proofs, and I have this to say. Most of their proof is against a straw man, and then he goes on sort of pompously to explain what straw man is. Okay, well, this is fundamentally the courtier's reply that P.C. Myers came up with in response to the people attacking Dawkins for not having this sufficient understanding of complex theology. It's always a skeptic or an atheist will criticize some aspect of Christian belief, And then the believer can just, oh, well, you have a very shallow and insipid understanding of these things, when in fact it's all extremely deep, and you're not really getting to the meat of it because you're ignorant and you haven't studied
Which
this kind
I still
of thing.
say is interesting, because without a God to examine, how can you know more than someone else?
Well, that's a point, yeah. But anyway, here's the example that was given. We're doing, before we've talked about things like, problem of evil, like deliberate acts of evil, like child rape and crimes and things that involve free will. Well, what about natural things, tragedies like cancer? Here's the question that was raised. For instance, a professor responds, why doesn't God answer the prayer to cure cancer? They, us pesky pain in the ass atheists, they argue that it doesn't work. Period. Trouble is, cancer is being cured day by day. It will be cured. Now, you guys are going to love this. You're going to love this. He says it will be cured within 100. Well, first off, he asserts that it will be cured within 100 years for sure. More likely within 20. Glad you're confident about that.
Yeah,
are you a professor of oncology now? Because he sounds really, probably not. But he says this. Listen to this. This is the great part. God is answering the prayers of many righteous people who not only prayed, but backed up their prayers with money, research, dedication, and science.
So this is the God helps those who help themselves argument. If you do it yourself, and then you thank God.
Well, if prayer needs to be backed up with money, research, dedication, and science, why waste time with the prayer part?
Isn't it right?
What role does prayer play in any of that?
Doesn't Russell use the example of taking 2 aspirin and praying for your headache to go away?
Yeah, and the headache went away. That's exactly what this fellow is doing. Okay. So he's saying, yes, God is answering prayers. Okay. It's just people got to do stuff, and when they do stuff, but that's actually God answering the prayer. Yeah. A little odd, yes. But then he goes on and he mentions some stuff that's historically false. Actually, he says if you study the history of medicine and medical research, you'll find that much of it owes its present status to Christians, Christian universities, Christian hospitals, which is actually pretty ahistorical. I mean, the history of medicine. Is pretty much
we have St. Jude's Hospital today, and
transcultural. In the Middle Ages, right, which falls within the period that he's about to talk about here. The most, okay, gotcha. In the Middle Ages, the most advanced medicine that was actually going on was coming from the Arab world, the Islamic world. Now they were still wrong, right, because they were working off Galenism, which came from Greece. So it's all about the 4 humors and what have you.
Oh, yeah.
But this was a time when, so that was actually the most advanced medicine at that time. And then in throughout all human cultures, you've had this or that or the other advance, and someone going along to fix some errors in our knowledge and what have you. But to claim that, again, it's mostly due to Christians, that's just plain ahistorical. But again, what he says is these same Christians prayed greatly each time they invested in research, outreach, and care. So what did it? Was it he seems to think it's the prayer that did it, and the research, outreach, and care, the actual science that followed the prayer, had really no part. Or did it? I mean, you think this man being a professor would understand that what he's just made is a testable claim.
Yeah.
Okay? We can do this. We can actually run an experiment. If he's saying that, is he implying that only research that is backed up by prayer ends up having positive results?
Right.
Or is he saying simply that, yes, prayer happens, but you got to have human activity to back the prayer up to get those results, in which case, why do we need prayer at all?
Correct.
No, he goes back and forth, and he doesn't really, explain which of those two kind of conflicting positions he actually holds.
It's like the children's story with the stone soup. I won't go into it, but you can look it up online if you're not familiar. Stone soup.
But what he doesn't get with when atheists ask these questions is, look, why can't prayer simply be sufficient in and of itself? Right. You are essentially talking about. Well, here I'll give a much better example. When he goes on, he goes on to say prayer works, but sometimes very slowly. Okay. And then he goes on to claim that he's annoyed with atheists because we're actually asking, well, why doesn't God answer prayers? We're asking, they're defining, when he says prayer doesn't work, they're defining doesn't work to mean doesn't work magically or doesn't work instantaneously.
Sort of like it was described in the Bible.
Well, he says, Jesus never said that. He said neither do most Christians.
He said you can move a mountain.
Yeah, that bit, right? The whole grain of a mustard seed, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, Mr. Professor, yes, in fact, Christians do claim this. We get calls on this show, and we get emails from people claiming, yes, God answered my prayers, and they describe a miraculous instant event.
Women who couldn't have children that were barren in the Old Testament, praying, giving birth to children.
But again, what are we doing here? It's called no true Scotsman now, this fallacy. Well, real Christians don't say that.